Right, good evening everyone and welcome to the full council meeting of Tamworth Borough Council. Just before we start, I'd like to mention a few procedural points in terms of ground rules and etiquette for members and officers present. Please remember to turn your mic on before speaking and turn it off when you're not speaking, and please speak clearly. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live on the internet. It is now 18:10 and so I open the meeting at agenda item 1, apologies. I wish to inform the meeting that we've received apologies from Councillor Paul Brindley. I haven't had any other apologies unless Democratic Services have. No, thank you. Right, I'd like to welcome the following new councillors. Councillor Andrew Cooper, Councillor John Harper, Councillor Jason Jones, Councillor Daniel Maycock and Councillor John Wade. I'd also like to send my best wishes to councillors not returning for this season, that is Councillor Robert Bilcliffe, Councillor Chris Cook, John Faulkner, Richard Kingstone and Pat Standen. I'd also like to welcome the following re-elected councillors: Councillor Daniel Cook, Councillor Richard Ford, Councillor Robert Pritchard, Councillor Martin Summers, Councillor Peter Thirdgood. I would also like to take this moment to present the past Mayor's badge to the former Mayor of Tamworth, Councillor Richard Kingston, who is here with us this evening. The badge for the term of office for 2019-20. Because of the restrictions, I'm not able to hand the badge over. So Richard, if you'd just like to turn around, and I believe your badge is there. And thank you very much. We now move on to item 2, which is to elect a mayor. As retiring mayor, it is now time for me to call for nominations for the office of mayor. I need a proposer and a seconder for any nominations. After the first nomination is seconded, I will ask whether there are any further nominations. Any further nominations would also need a proposer and a seconder. If there is more than one nomination, I will put all the nominations to the vote until there is a clear majority of votes for one nomination. Please can I ask for a nomination for mayor? I'd like to take this moment to nominate Councillor Michael Oates as mayor for the upcoming year. If my memory serves me correct, I've known Mick since 2011 when he and his sidekick Jeremy knocked at my door during the campaigning for the next borough elections. I recall Mick spending time speaking to my late husband Stephen and encouraging him to consider standing for council, which he went on to do the following year, which was all due to Mick's support and encouragement. Mick was first elected onto the Borough Council in 2003. He was elected as mayor 4 years later in 2007. Mick and his late wife Mary served the town in their usual friendly, always making people feel comfortable. Mick has served as chairman on the planning and licensing committees during his time on the council and has always done so with integrity and fairness. He is a gentleman. As I referred to earlier, Mick is always keen to support and encourage others, and I know that should he be elected mayor this evening, he will be a great support to the many Tamworth organisations and businesses and spread the word about our great town. I hope you will join me in supporting Mick for the position of mayor this evening. Could I ask for a second of that nomination, please?
Can I? Do you want to remain seated, Madam Mayor? Sorry.
Yes, yeah. Please.
I'd like to second the motion for Councillor Mick Oates to be Mayor of our historic borough. Councillor Oates, or Mick as many of us know him, has always been a councillor that my intake has always looked up to and hold great respect for. When I was first elected, Councillor Oates took myself and Councillor Danny Cook under his wing and offered us his support and mentoring and wisdom to help us learn the ropes without any agenda on his own part or any need for thanks. He just wanted to welcome the new young whippersnappers into the chamber. As part of his mentoring, he gave myself and Councillor Oates, Councillor Cook, many rules to abide by. These rules were all-encompassing and often cause of entertainment for myself and Councillor Cook, especially when we quoted them back at Councillor Oates when he broke them himself. There were so many, I forget most of them, but there's two that always stuck with me. The first was listen to old Mick. The second was also listen to old Mick. He just said it louder and slower than the first time. And I now know what inspired the iconic line from the movie Fight Club. But in all seriousness, Councillor Oates provided us with a welcoming manner and someone who we could always talk to. He rarely agreed with us, but he was always there to listen to us. And I can say that without Councillor Oates, I wouldn't have had the positive experience I had in my first term. He's always provided a template of what a good councillor looks like: honest, hard-working and dedicated to the role. And now Councillor Oates will return to the morality. I'm pleased that once again we will have to listen to old Mick.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Do we have any other nominations for Mayor? I would like now there to take a vote to elect Councillor Michael Oates as Mayor of Tamworth Borough Council. All those in favour of Councillor Oates as Mayor of Tamworth Borough Council, please raise your hands. I think I can say that's a unanimous decision. I would therefore like to confirm that the vote is in favour of Councillor Michael Oates, who has been elected to the office of Mayor, and I would now like to hand over to the Chief Executive of Tamworth Borough Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Chief Executive of Tamworth Borough Council, I would like to welcome you, Councillor Oates, as Mayor, and I would like to invite you to read out and then sign the Declaration of Office.
Thank you. I, Michael Oates, having been elected to the office of Mayor of the Borough of Tamworth, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of that in accordance to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the code as to the conduct which is expected of me as Mayor and Member of Tamworth Borough Council. I'm now signing. Thank you. I've been told I've got to sit down, I can't stand up. So, oh sorry, let me put the badge on, I'll have to move. Thank you all for your support. I was unanimous. I think that's incredible. I was really pleased. Both Rosie and Robert, thank you both for your very kind words. Am I too far away? Oh, this chair don't work. Okay. I'm embarrassed now because I was going to say all sorts of things. I will do this job as best I can, and hopefully I won't let you down. I've been in Tamworth since 1952. Some people think I was born here, but I wasn't. I'm just old. Robert, you nearly made me cry. Do you know that? Thank you all. Oh, sorry, I must welcome the new councillors for all the kind words that have been said to me. I have been known to swear and slip up and stumble, but I'll try and be right and proper. And my sympathies go to those who fought and lost in the local elections. Over the years I've fought elections and lost, and I know what it's like. But welcome to the newcomers. I think I've lost my agenda, I'm stumped. I think that's all I've got to say. Councillor Claymore, do you want to say anything as a departing speech? Oh, sorry, thank you. I now come to elect a deputy mayor.
Did you want to just ask, congratulate Rosie on the term and then ask her to speak? And then we'll move on to the if you want to just ask Rosie to congratulate Rosie on her term,
Yeah.
and then ask her if she wants to do
Yeah,
a
that's what
background
I'll do,
speech.
yeah. And then do it again.
And then do.
Rosie, I've got to congratulate on the term you've just done, which must have been very, very difficult because you haven't had an audience, a live audience, and that's got to be difficult. But then in saying that, they haven't been able to swear at you either, have they? But you've done a marvellous job, Rosie. And do you want to say anything, please?
Yes, please, I would like to, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, forgot. Can I present you? I can present you with your past mayor's badge.
Thank you. We are a double act. Thank you, Mr Mayor. May I extend a warm welcome to everyone here gathered for this ancient ceremony of mayor making, and indeed the first physical face-to-face council meeting during my civic year. I'm sure you've all got used to seeing me on screen, but this is the live version now. As Mayor of Tamworth, I would just like to say that this year has probably been the most unusual year for any mayor to serve. But what I can say is that it has been a complete honour and privilege to be the Mayor of Tamworth during this difficult period in all our lives. It is a year that none of us will ever forget. On that note, I would like to send my thoughts and condolences to the families and friends who have sadly lost loved ones during the past year, be it to COVID or for any other reason. I'd like to convey my sadness over the amount of people who have lost their lives to COVID and for the people who are still suffering from long COVID. Whilst I haven't been able to attend many functions, I would have liked to. Each and every one of them I did attend was memorable. And again, it has been an honour for me to do so. During the year, I have met some fantastic people who have volunteered tirelessly to work to help others less fortunate than themselves. I've been inspired by all the generous people in Tamworth who give up their time week in, week out helping others. To name a few, the Round Table, who were collecting food and toiletries at the start of the lockdown and are now helping at the vaccination centres and doing a fantastic job. Starfish Project and Heart of Tamworth supporting homeless people through this time. The Tamworth Sewing Group, who are making scrubs, face masks, hats for NHS workers, carers and key workers. At the peak, there were over 500 volunteers who collectively made over 25,000 items, an amount of items that I was absolutely staggered with. Tamworth CIC, who have played such a big part in supporting Tamworth residents and running the Tamworth Hub. Paula and all the volunteers at the Tamworth Wellbeing and Cancer Centre for trying to keep supporting people throughout the pandemic. The list is endless and I could spend the rest of the meeting talking about all the people who have stepped up to support others. You are all amazing. Finally, it was particularly sad for me to announce the passing of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh earlier this year. There are so many people that I may not have met if things had been different. I was amazed by the amount of individual people that took it upon themselves to do something for others. I asked for nominations of people that had volunteered during the first lockdown. I was inundated with nominations, including 4 ladies who ran a lockdown supper club, providing meals, newspapers, shopping and befriending, shielding and elderly people, and a lady who knitted a mega scarf which raised funds for Acorns Hospice, and not forgetting 4-year-old Eli, who took it upon himself to litter pick in the area he lives in. There are many more inspiring people I could mention, and I'm glad I did get the pleasure to meet some of them. In the past, mayors have had opportunities to raise money for their chosen charities. Unfortunately, this year, I've been unable to hold many such functions for my chosen charity, St Giles, a charity close to my heart. I would like to say a massive thank you for the support by everyone who has supported this, and in particular, I'd like to thank 2 local businesses, Mrs Little Cupcake and the Wardrobe Boutique, who ran 2 very successful fundraisers during the year on my behalf. With your indulgence, Mr Mayor, Can I add that my Just Giving page is still up and running for anyone who still wishes to make a donation. As Mayor, I would never have been able to do this role alone. Firstly, I would like to thank my consort, my sister Mrs Maureen Wood, who has given us so much of her personal time to support me in this role and has been my right-hand woman throughout. Also, a big thank you to all my family for supporting me over the year. Secondly, there is no doubt to any of us that our Tamworth Borough staff have worked tirelessly to adjust and cope with these very different circumstances. Next, I would also like to thank my fellow members who have supported me where they have been able, and I have been very grateful for all their help. Finally, I want to thank those members of staff in the back office, democratic services, people who help and support the Mayor, organising and responding to invites, to helping with the change, driving me around, although there hasn't been much of that, to be honest, to those staff who help with social media and the press, and for dealing with all the changing stages throughout this unusual year. Circumstances do not allow me to show my appreciation in the usual manner of offering gifts. However, I will be thanking you all personally in the very near future. All that remains to say is thank you. It's been my absolute pleasure to serve you all. Thank you.
This agenda we've got, I haven't been taking a lot of notice of it. I did forget to thank your consort, Mrs Maureen Wood. Thank you, Mrs Wood. I'd like to ask somebody to propose a vote of thanks for the service that Councillor Claymore and Mrs Maureen Wood has done over the last 12 months. Councillor Danny Cook, have we got a seconder? Councillor Robert Pritchard. Okay, can we have a show of hands, please? I think that's unanimous. Yep, they're not arguing with me anyway. Whilst I'm at that point, can I introduce my consort, or would-be mayoress? Can you stand up, please? My daughter Miriam. She's in the balcony. Thank you, Miriam. Okay. Right, now where are we on the agenda? What? I'm glad you're there. We now come to the election of Deputy Mayor. I'll ask for nominations for Deputy Mayor. I would like to nominate Councillor Moira Grestrix. She's a strong woman, and she's the widow of the late chairman of Staffordshire County Council, Michael Grestrix. He was a gentleman as well. And I'm looking for a seconder. Seconder, Dr. Simon People. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any other nominations?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I thought you would allow me to at least say something in support of the nomination. If I may, just to say that I'm sure that Maura will be an absolutely excellent Deputy Mayor. I'm no doubt, like you and many others here, very sorry that Michael's not here to see her elevated to civic office, but I'm sure he will be looking down with great pride and very glad to know that the esteem in which he held her is still that which we hold her in putting her forward for this office. She'll be a brilliant ambassador. And on a personal note, can I add that Tom, if he was still here, would be delighted. And I'm sure I speak for everyone in wishing you a very successful time in the coming year supporting our Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Councillor Greg, did you want to speak now?
Just wanted to say to Councillor Simon People, thank you so much. I shall endeavour to do the best I can I won't let the town down, but of course the honour this year goes to Mick. My time will come next year, but when Mick can't do stuff, I shall be there supporting the town. And thank you all for nominating me and voting me into this position tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we can move to the vote. All those in favour? Yeah. I think that's unanimous. Welcome to the stage, Councillor Greatrix. Did you want to say any more?
Well, there's not much more to say, really, Mr. Mayor. I've got to get used to calling you that now. And as I said, I will support you. If you're unable to attend something, I will be there, and I will not let you or the town down.
Thank you, Councillor. And we now come to agenda item 4. I'm going back to the agenda now. I can't hear him.
I need to do my bit now.
Oh, sorry. Let me introduce Chief Executive Andrew Barrett. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Chief Executive of Tamworth Borough Council, I'd like to welcome you, Councillor Greatrix, as Deputy Mayor, and I would like to invite you to read out and then sign the Declaration of Office. Thank you.
Thank you. I, Moira Greatrix, having been elected to the office of Deputy Mayor of the Borough of Tamworth, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the code as to the conduct which is expected of me as a member of Tamworth Borough Council.
Thank you. I think I'm correct now. Agenda item 4, the election of the leader of the council. Correct me? Correct. I am right. Oh, sorry, Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And firstly, congratulations on your appointment to the Morality, fundamentally deserved. Fellow Trinity Councillor, looking forward to working with you, Mr. Mayor. Can I also add my thanks to Councillor Rosie Claymore for completing a year as Mayor of our historic borough in difficult and challenging times with grace and courage. Thank you, Rosie. Mr. Mayor, as you'll be aware, I was leader of this authority for over 11 years until recently. So I hope you agree I may have some insight into the demands of the role and the character that is needed. And I can tell you fully that leadership of this council is exactly that. It's about character. In choosing a leader, we must be fully aware of the right candidate's qualities, experience and dedication. In the absence of that person, sorry, I do joke, it is my pleasure to propose as leader of this council for the coming year, in fact years if I could get away with it, Councillor Jeremy Oates. I know of no elected councillor more qualified or able to fulfil this role at this time. Members will recall Jeremy was leader of this council between 2006 and 2009, and I was his deputy for most of that time. I've seen him operate firsthand and can fully confirm he has a grip of the role, is forward-thinking and dynamic in representing the needs of our borough and its residents. I think his finest hour came in 2007 when he managed to successfully drag me from Marmion House before the monitoring officer suffered an unfortunate accident. Just a warning for the future appointee. Jeremy delivered a lot of things that needed to be done in Tamworth in that first period of leadership. We all recall leisure futures, stock transfer, some of the challenges that the council undertook, and Jeremy fronted these very well, very bravely, and never shirked his responsibilities. It was a pleasure to serve him then, as it's been a pleasure to serve him again for the last few months. I obviously won't tell you some of the stories about the conferences we went on together, but the world was always put to rights many nights, late evening, in a local drinking hole. Jeremy returned as leader late February this year, and as we always say, on my watch. Well, on his watch, this group grew within months to the largest the Conservatives have ever seen on this council. If that's not a ringing endorsement from the public, I really don't know what is, Mr. Mayor. Jeremy is the right person to continue in the role as leader, and personally I'm looking forward to his vision and direction for Tamworth. Therefore, Mr. Mayor, I fully endorse and recommend Councillor Jeremy Oates for leader of the council, and I offer Jeremy one commitment if he is successfully elected as leader this evening. I will clear out my office at some point, Jeremy, I promise. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Chesworth.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Congratulations on your appointment this evening. With the exception of yourself, Mr Mayor, I'm sure that out of all those in this room, I've known Jeremy Oates the longest. I could say in what context and probably embarrass him, but I won't, even though I'm not that cruel. But if anybody does want any stories, they can ask me later on. Little did I think all those years ago that I'd be supporting his nomination as leader of the council, but here I am. Councillor Cook's already touched on it. To fulfil the role, the leader needs certain characteristics. He needs experience, knowledge, and Jeremy's got that in bucket loads, having been a councillor for 20 years. There's a lot of significant work to be done over the coming years, and Jeremy Oates is definitely the right person to be leading this council through these times. I therefore second his nomination as leader of the council. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Chesworth. Are there any other nominations? There appears not to be. Then, therefore, can we go to the vote? All those in favour of Councillor Oates becoming leader of Tamworth Borough Council? I haven't counted it, but it seems a majority in favour. Have you got the figures, Tracy?
Sorry, could you just put your hands up again, please? I can. So, yeah, I can see all the fours. Could you just ask for any against, please, Mr Mayor? Thank you.
Any against and then any abstentions.
Okay. Are there any abstentions? Any against? I can't see any. No. No.
I can confirm then that's 28 votes for. Thank you.
Councillor Oates, Jeremy, you are approved for leadership as a councillor. Do you want to say anything?
If I may, Mr Mayor, firstly, congratulations on becoming Mayor of Tamworth for a second time. It was an exclusive club to be Mayor twice, but it seems to be getting more popular. But I'm sure you'll do a grand job, and I'm sure your pride in the town will shine through. If I may, Mr Mayor, just a couple of thank yous. Thank you to Councillor Claymore for the years she's just given as Mayor. It was a tough year. It was a tough year for everybody. But to go into the position with expectations of being the Mayor in a normal year and then having that taken off you by the pandemic, it was a real test of character. And I think you did a fantastic job thinking about the videos you did from the Town Hall, some of the other events you did, and as you've mentioned, very recently having to announce the passing of the Duke of Edinburgh. I think you've held the position fantastically, and you should be proud of yourself, Councillor Claymore. I'd also like to thank the community for the contribution they've made over the last 12 months and highlight that as an opportunity for us all to learn. The last 12 months have changed the world and they've changed Tamworth, and the contribution the Tamworth community has given and shown, quite often in quiet, we should be grateful for. I'd also like to thank the outgoing councillors who either didn't restand or didn't retain their seats on the council for their contribution they've made to Tamworth over recent years. And we commented on some of those at the last full council meeting. Mr Mayor, the year ahead is going to be challenging. For those who were in the room prior to the meeting, we listened to a local reverend explain the challenges that are ahead of us and the challenges to individuals. We have a real hard fight ahead of us to make Tamworth a better place in the post-pandemic world. Mr Mayor, we have Future High Street Fund and Town Centre regeneration projects to deliver. We also have to learn the lessons of the pandemic and look at new ways of working so we can come out with a better society than we had pre-pandemic. This is my intention, Mr Mayor, to look at the way we work and look at the way we engage. This includes reviewing our governance models, so we can include more councillors having more discretion and more input on our decision making. This I intend to do over the next 6 months with the support of the Local Government Association. I've got some ideas, but it is key that we all have our contribution and we all shape the way that we work in future. One of the things I'll be announcing a little bit later on is a change in the way we do Cabinet, but more to that shortly. We need to be a dynamic and agile council. We've proven in the last 12 months we can do this. We need to continue to prove that we're dynamic and agile. It's a bit weird tonight, Mr. Mayor. First thing, as was mentioned, I've been on the council 20 years. I think this is the second full council meeting I've had in this room. It's a bit odd. It's a bit odd that I'm sitting down and not able to stand up and extend my diaphragm and project my voice around the echoey chamber. It's a bit odd that I'm actually sitting with you guys. The last 12 months I've been looking at this screen. We're in a whole new world, and we've got to grasp the things that were good after the last 12 months. It's a bit more than 12 months, sorry. But we've also got to bring back that face-to-face discussion. The Reverend earlier talked about the value of speaking to people and not sending text messages. We should never lose that, but we also need to embrace the opportunities that the technology has brought us. And I will save my rant about the government not trusting local government to make its own decisions on hybrid meetings for another day, but I think I've alluded to my point there. Mr. Mayor, as a council, we need to engage. We need to understand what's going on. We need to become a more listening council. And that means listening to not just the residents of Tamworth, but also the business owners, the professionals we have in Tamworth. We have a wealth of talent out there, and we need to embrace those people and listen to them. We need to listen to disability groups. We need to listen to LGBTQ groups. We need to listen to those of different demographics, of different levels of deprivation and affluence, and we need to make Tamworth the best place we possibly can. Part of that role, Mr. Mayor, doesn't just fall on my shoulders, it falls on everybody's in this room. And going forward, I mentioned the governance changes, I've mentioned changes the way we engage, but going forward, I want to actively support all members of the council, particularly those who aren't on cabinet, and take a more locally focused role in their wards. I want to empower them to become at the forefront of communications between the people they represent and the council, and vice versa. And also going forward, I want them to have more say as to what goes on in their local areas. It is not good enough that things happen in local areas and the ward councillor is one of the last to know. We need to change this, and we need the ward councillors to be driving that. I'm not going to say any more, Mr. Mayor, because I don't want to go into too much detail tonight, but that's the general direction I want to be going in this year. Deliver the big projects, look at the ways we work, improve our engagement, and become that dynamic, agile, listening council that we've been for the last 12 months, and get that embedded as part of the day job. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So, thank you, Councillor Oates, and congratulations on becoming leader again. Where am I? Item number 5. I'm not being corrected, so there's something wrong. Any declarations of interest? If you're not sure, you can always later on when the subject crops up. I'll accept it then. Right, and item 6, minutes of the previous council meetings, the 9th of March 2021 and the 16th of March 2021. I would ask if anybody has any of note worth raising about those minutes. Is Councillor Simon People? Dr. Simon
Happy to
People.
move both sets of minutes as correct, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Doctor, I missed that.
I said I was happy to move both sets of minutes as correct, Mr. Mayor.
Does anybody want, Councillor Jeremy Oates, leader, Council?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did spot a typo in the minutes. It was a sentence that had been repeated, but I can't for the life of me find it now. It didn't change the material of the minutes or any substance, so I'm happy to second that. And when I find it, well, I'll tip off Demo Services to make that adjustment.
Thank you, Councillor Oates. Is there anything else in the minutes anybody's concerned about? And if it is your wish, that I'll sign the records, please indicate. Was that unanimous? Yeah. I'm sorry, but the people who weren't in the meeting last year that day's meetings can't vote. I should have said that beforehand. So it was unanimous from the people who were there. Can I say that? Thank you. I'll sign the minutes.
But point of order, Mr. Mayor, I believe the people who are here can vote. It's only those who are there who can move and second. Hence, yeah, it's perfectly proper that it was moved and seconded by those present, but everybody at the meeting now can vote. Unless the rules have changed in the last 23 years.
Okay. That's the minutes signed. Where are we now? Item 7, to receive any announcements. It says here from the Mayor, which I haven't got any other than congratulations to the new members. From the Mayor, the Leader, or members of Cabinet, or the Chief Executive. Has anybody anything to add? That's over quick. Got none. We now come to question time. We've got no questions from the public, so I'll move straight to questions from the councillors. Councillor Clements, would you like to ask the Leader a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations to yourself and congratulations to Councillor Greatrix too on becoming Deputy Mayor. With the ever-growing tally of military veterans taking their own lives and not getting the support they need, the latest being Lance Shingler from Solihull just across the border into West Midlands, can I ask Councillor Jeremy Oates what this council is doing to identify them, and once identified, what support is being given? Thank you.
Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Clements. We should remember that anybody taking their own life is an absolute tragedy for that person in the run-up to that event, but also to their family, friends and colleagues. In terms of servicemen, Tamworth is a signatory in the Staffordshire Armed Forces Covenant, and which seeks to support current and former armed forces personnel in their communities. The covenant was signed in 2015 and was adopted by Staffordshire County Council and by Tamworth Borough Council. The details of the county-wide scheme and its current funding programmes are available on the County Council website, and the aims of the covenant are to encourage local communities to support armed forces community in their areas and nurture public understanding and awareness among the public of the issues that face the armed forces community. Another aim is to recognise and remember the sacrifices faced by the armed forces community. And it is key that we refer to the community. It's not just the individuals who served, because their families certainly serve alongside them, as do their friends and colleagues. It aims to encourage activities which help to integrate the armed forces into communities and into local life, and encourage armed forces communities to help in the support of wider communities, whether it's through participation in events or joint projects and other forms of engagement. Tamworth is committed to supporting veterans and serving members of the armed forces and their families in a variety of ways, Mr. Mayor. For example, priority award under the Council's allocation policy and access to housing registers seeking to accelerate rehousing is one of our large focuses. This is important, Mr Mayor. We hear all too often about servicemen, men and women, who struggle to get rehoused after leaving the forces. Our homelessness strategy also identifies current and former members of the armed forces and partners with other organisations such as, and I can't pronounce it, but it's SSAFA, to prevent homelessness and prevent crisis. Recent awards from MHCLG funding for rough sleepers has been successful, £100,000, and this will help signpost vulnerable applicants, including veterans, through a range of social and health pathways. One of our main community safety partnership priorities is to support vulnerable people, and such as ex-armed forces personnel who require support will be signposted to where the situation merits, including organisations who can help support them with housing, mental health and job opportunities. Only this afternoon, Mr Mayor, I was in the presence of a former member of the armed forces who is retraining in the building industry, and he's got that retraining through support that's been given out locally and signposting for that position. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clements, have you a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the leader for his response. Tamworth Conservative Group now has 3 veterans sitting on this council. I'm not all alone anymore. And we all have varying degrees of what is actually on offer to those that have served the Queen and country. We all know about the Royal British Legion and we all know about SAFA, to name 2. So can I ask the leader and this council to take forward my questions and maybe bring a report back at a later date? Thank you.
Councillor Oates.
Happy to have a further discussion with Councillor Clements, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillors. Councillor Dr Simon People, I believe you have a question of the leader.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would add to what the leader said that it was my privilege to be working with the Housing Department when they were awarded, when they took part in a study in the West Midlands, because they were at the forefront of supporting veterans who are homeless. And that study was written up. So I'll find a link and send it on to you, because the Tamworth Council has always taken that particularly seriously. And if I may say to my colleagues who've served, that the thing that struck me was the number of people who had served for a short time, not a full 22-year type service, because those people often had skills or were supported out of the army in a very professional way, or the army or other services. It seemed to be most true of those who'd done 1 or 2 tours and had not had that support when they left. So I would urge Councillor Clements and the others to look at that particular area, because they were the most vulnerable. Anyway, to my question, Mr Mayor, thank you for the indulgence. Following Her Majesty's Government's announcement that planning reform is to be included in their legislative programme, what steps is the leader taking to restate to ministers the case made by Tamworth Borough Council about the negative impact the proposed reforms are likely to have on Tamworth?
Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor People. Just for the new members or those that aren't aware, in October 2020, the Council responded to consultation on the Government's proposals to reform the planning system set out in the Planning White Paper and the changes to the current planning system consultation document. In response, this Council raised a number of concerns, and this was done cross-party, about the elements within their proposal and a potential negative impact on Tamworth. I was part of that discussion. I think most members who were on the council at the time were. These included the introduction of zone-based systems for plan making, changes to the standard method for calculating housing need that would inflate Tamworth's requirement, the removal of the duty to cooperate that the council has used effectively to deliver it against its housing need. The automatic outline planning permission in some designated areas and changes to decision making that would see stricter timescales introduced and the refund of application fees were they not met. The government announced in April 2021 the intention not to take forward their proposed changes to the standard method following the consultation exercise. However, responses to the other elements of the consultation are yet to be published. This is particularly important, Mr. Mayor. I will continue to push the arguments that defend our position and ensure that decision-making powers are not eroded but are strengthened in Tamworth. Only this afternoon I was in conversation with our MP, the Housing Minister, about planning reform, and I gave him a clear indication that we will not be sitting quietly and allowing the government to erode any of our powers, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Have you a supplementary, Dr. People?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no need of a supplementary. The leader has addressed my concerns. Thank you.
Well, thank you both. Now we'll move on to agenda item 9. No, sorry, agenda item 8. I lost it. 8. Remind me. No, that was 8, wasn't it? No, agenda item 9. Sorry about that. The appointment of cabinet and allocation of responsibilities. I will hand over to the leader of the council to present this item. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be very brief. I've circulated these via email, but I would just like to say that there are some changes going forward. They say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The cabinet we had before wasn't broke, so please do not interpret that my thoughts were it was. The world has changed and the challenges have changed, and what I seek to do is create a new team with different perspectives and a fresh view on the world post-pandemic. With that, Mr. Mayor, I would like to announce the following cabinet positions. Councillor Robert Pritchard will remain as Deputy Leader of the Council, and his portfolio going forward will be Environment and Leisure. For many years, Councillor Pritchard has dealt with the finance and customer services and various other bits and pieces, and whenever he could, he would stray into other portfolios. So I made a list of where he tried to stray and gave it to him. So Councillor Pritchard, I'm expecting you to step up and deliver on the stuff that you've craved for so many years. Portfolio for Economy and Waste. He has already spoken this evening and he did a fantastic job over the last 11 years as Leader of the Council. And I would like to ask Danny Cook to take the portfolio for Economy and Waste, which will include the waste management contract and dry recycle disposal contract. It will include speaking to our neighbours, Lichfield District Council, on our joint waste board, but it will also include the voluntary sector and the community offer that we discussed earlier in terms of the experiences of the last 12 months. However, the key part of this for me is I'm asking Danny Cook to engage with the local businesses, with the Chamber of Commerce, with the former bid group and any other groups that are available to drive Tamworth forward and continue the work he started when he created the Tamworth What's Next project. Next portfolio holder will be Councillor Stephen Doyle, who I can't see. Where's he gone? Oh, he's there. He's hiding behind Councillor Cooper. I'm asking Councillor Doyle to continue in his regulatory and community safety role with a few tweaks. He has shown a tenacity and a real drive for detail over recent years. I'm asking him to continue to do so and drive forward and continue with the licensing and the environmental work and the regulatory stuff that Steve's good at, but also the community safety stuff and develop that role as to how we can better engage with the wider membership of the council in terms of tackling antisocial behaviour. So who have I missed? Oh yeah. As mentioned earlier, Councillor Pritchard was the Finance and Customer Services and whatever else portfolio. It's now Finance and Customer Services. and I would like to ask Councillor Marie Bailey to sit on Cabinet and take that role. Marie has certainly shown how good she can be in private conversations over the last 12 months during the pandemic, continually badgering me for updates on COVID in terms of case rates, in terms of vaccination rates, in terms of interpretation. She also continually spoke to Danny Cook when he was leader of the council about the financial impact of the pandemic and the long-term effects that will have on our finances. So having seen the work she's done there and also know what she does for a living, and I've pretty much photocopied her CV and made it into a portfolio. So I'm confident that Councillor Bailey is going to do a fantastic job for us here. This brings me on to the point I raised earlier about changing the way we work, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to create a portfolio called Social Housing and Homelessness Prevention, and this will be led by Councillor Alex Farrell. This will not be administered in the way we've done it in the past, and at the next Cabinet meeting, I'll be announcing that Councillor Farrell will be looking after not only the portfolio, but also a committee within that portfolio to look at some of the longer term strategic decisions. There'll be more about that at the Cabinet meeting when I announce it, but the key part of that will be to allow a broader audience of members to be involved in those decision making strategically going forward in terms of the long-term business planning, etc., of the HRA. And I envisage that committee will be politically balanced and therefore allow representation from the opposition group on that committee. That concludes my Cabinet announcement, Mr. Mayor and portfolio holders. However, I've got one extra additional thing, and that is that Cannock and Chase District Council finally got back to me this afternoon to accept my position that it is our turn to nominate to the scrutiny panel of the West Midlands Combined Authority. And as we have done in the past, our nomination will be Councillor Simon People for the Scrutiny Committee of the West Midlands Combined Authority. That concludes my announcements. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Oates. Has anybody got any comments or questions? No comments, no questions. Well, then we'll move on to agenda item 10, the appointment of committees. I again hand over to Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is to be elected by full council, but I would like to move the following on block and seek a seconder, and that is the election of Councillor Rosie Claymore as Chair of Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Daniel Maycock as Vice Chair of Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Simon Goodall as Chairman of Infrastructure, Safety and Growth Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Tina Clements as Vice Chair of Infrastructure, Safety and Growth Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Thomas Jay, who, with those people who have opened my email, was missing from the list, for Corporate Scrutiny Chairman, and Councillor Stephen Pritchard for Vice Chairman of Corporate Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Martin Summers as Chairman of Audit and Governance Committee, Councillor Richard Ford as Vice Chairman of Audit and Governance Committee, Councillor John Chesworth as Chairman of the Planning Committee, Councillor Marie Bailey as Vice Chairman of the Planning Committee, Councillor Ben Price as Chairman of the Licensing Committee, and Councillor Tina Clements as Vice Chairman of the Licensing Committee. I so move, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a seconder? No? Sorry, Councillor. Robert's dad, Stephen Pritchard. Any other comments, questions? Well, can we move to the vote? All those in favour? Again, it looks to me unanimous, Tracy. Yeah. I think that's carried unanimously. Move to item 12, the local authority's executive arrangements, meetings and access to information regulation 2012, and I will hand over to the leader of the council to present the report. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is a statement of fact, and it updates the council in line with the legislation as to the number of decisions made by the executive or cabinet that were not given the full required notice period. Mr. Mayor, during the last municipal year, 2 reports were received at short notice, which I have to say I'm amazed that we only had 2, bearing in mind the pressures we were under. Both of those related to responding to the pandemic and COVID legislation. One was in April this year under my watch, and this was impacted on directly by the roadmap out of lockdown and referred to the opening up of some of our assets again, including this building. The other one happened under Councillor Danny Cook's watch last summer, and also related to our response to the COVID-19 legislation change. So my recommendation is that the council endorse and note the arrangements for those two reports under the executive arrangements report. I so move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Oates. Are there any questions? I've got Councillor Daniel Cook. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not a question, but I'm happy to second the report. As Councillor Oates correctly pointed out to me on Monday, as one of these is his and one of these is mine, it'd be rude for me not to second it. And I also reserve the right, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tina Clements? I thought you put your hand up. No. Dr. Simon People.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, but I was going to second. There's no need.
Are there any other comments or questions? Then I can put it to the vote. I've had a proposer, Councillor Oates, seconded Councillor Daniel Cook. All those in favour? I think that's unanimously carried. Demo services aren't not contradicting. That is carried. Agenda item 13, which is confirmation of the appointment of the statutory post of monitoring officer, and I will now hand over to Chief Executive Andrew Barrett to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Council will recall that on the 16th of March, it approved the temporary appointment of Lorraine Fowkes as our interim monitoring officer following the departure of our former head of governance and monitoring officer. This appointment allowed time for us to review the vacancy, carry out our sort of necessary internal due diligence, and I can report to Council that we have successfully appointed Nicola Hesketh to this role, which is an internal candidate who showed all of the necessary qualities that we were looking for. The post is initially for a period of 2 years, so it goes hand in glove with our reset and recovery programme. And also to sort of further support the transition and development of our new post holder, Mrs. Fowkes will continue to provide support and advice, for which we're very thankful and grateful for. So I would ask Council that we approve the appointment of Nicola Hesketh, but I would also ask Council to formally thank Mrs. Fowkes for her support during the time and in the transition period. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Yeah. Are there any questions, comments at all? Have we got a proposer and a seconder, please? Councillor Dr. Simon People, Councillor Robert Pritchard.
As you called me first, I'll propose it, both elements of that, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, Doctor.
I said, as you called me first, I will propose it and invite someone else to second it. Thank you. Both elements, the
Did I get that
appointment
backwards?
and the
I'm sorry.
approval.
Do you want to second it, Councillor Pritchard? Okay, Dr. Peoples proposed, Councillor Pritchard seconded it. All those in favour, please show. Okay, anybody against? Anybody abstaining? No, I think that motion is carried. Thank you, unanimously. Item 14, to receive the calendar of meetings for 2021/22, and I will ask the Leader of the Council to present this item, Councillor Jeremy Oates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It is the calendar of meeting. It's been circulated. I did mention earlier on that I wanted to have a look at our governance model going forward, but that won't come into effect until later in the year. And we have to set a calendar of meetings at this meeting, Mr Mayor. So before us, we have a calendar of meetings that has been put together under the current governance arrangements by Democratic Services. I'd like to thank them for doing this, and I'd like to move that we accept the calendar of meetings as is, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Have we got a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Robert Pritchard, that is. Have we any questions or comments? Well, with that motion being carried, I think that concludes the meeting. Thank you all for attending. It's nice to see people in the public gallery. And thank you all, I don't know where the camera is, so I don't know what I'm looking at, for the people who've been watching online. I'll say thank you and good night. Thank you again.